shadow on the wall that looks like a man. Lord, that lamp just moved on that stand. I got movement in the cellars, I got footsteps in the hall. There's no time to waste, I better make some calls. I gotta get ready, make everything right, 'cause all my rowdy friends are goes hunting tonight. Hey, round up the team, let's get started. Hey, this is Brother Mine. There's a party and you're invited. We got the camera set, let's turn off these lights, 'cause all my rowdy friends are goes hunting tonight. This old house has a long history. It should be real, real good for activity. And we got the house wired for sound and got motion alarms setting all around. Got a box full of batteries ready to go, and everyone's itching to start this show. Got our logo tees, driving black SUVs, and that one bald guy with a slick goatee. Hey, round up the team. Let's get started. Hey, this is Brother Mine. Well, there's a party and you're invited. We got the camera set, let's turn off these lights, 'cause all my rowdy friends are goes hunting tonight. Hey, round up the team. Let's get started. Hey, this is your big brother Mike calling. There's a party and you're invited. We got the camera set, let's turn off these lights, 'cause all my rowdy friends are goes hunting tonight. That's right. Go get 'em, boys.
And welcome everybody to PEMA TV.
Welcome everybody to January 3rd, 2014 and Friday.
Made it to 2014. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking of making it to 2014, even though you're not going to need for your holiday shopping needs anymore.
Hey, there are birthdays coming up.
That's
and
right.
Valentine's Day is in 6 weeks, 5 weeks.
So be sure and go to Metaluna.
BoutiqueandStones.com. Ha! I got the
And we're actually showing a picture from, I believe that's a red shirt that you're selling?
Yeah, it's a red 3/4 length type t-shirt, but it's not quite cotton material.
Mm.
It says Love Connected Haters.
There you go. And
with the IRA on it.
Mm-hmm. And here at PEN, we have recently expanded, so be sure and check out Pen 2 and our radio page. Because that's a great segue, because our guest tonight is just joined our radio family.
Yes, she has.
And we are proud to bring on Jessie Ann Nichols George.
.com.
Well, actually is .com. But she does a show called Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. Jessie, how are you?
You know, I'm doing wonderful, Eric. This is just absolutely perfect to be on here, and I'm so happy to be a part of Penn Network here and to have the show running through your area as well. You know, I know that I was blessed to work with you a little while back. I was on with Christiana's Cafe, and had a blast doing that show with her, and here I am coming on live with you. So
well, I guess
it's wonderful.
I guess it's our pleasure to have you. But when did all this start for you? Because I would read your bio, but then we'd only have about 20 minutes left for the show, because there's not a whole lot that you haven't
covered
or been part of. I mean, everything from Reiki to crystals to astrology, numerology, feng shui, signs and symbols, dreams, DreamWorks, meditation, and visualization. I don't want to say you've done it all, but you've done a bunch.
I've done an awful lot, that's for certain.
But how did it start for you? That's my big question: is how does it start for you? And how did you figure out your connection?
She was collecting rocks.
Actually, Kim, I think you're pretty close to that. Eric, it started for me. I consciously have memories of around 3, ironically, the age of 3, where I was having dreams, and I would get messages in dreams. I would see things in my dreams, and it felt like I had lived them. And then I would wake up, and then a day or 2 later, they would happen. And so that kind of always interested me. And then as a child, we would go places as family trips, like Yosemite National Park or things like this. And, forget all the commercially sort of things. I went right over to all the polished gemstones and grabbed those.
See?
And I was always drawn to the rocks and stones and nature and those aspects. And as I continued to get a little bit older, I kept having more and more dreams. And until I hit about the age, I was in, I think, junior high, and I was doing a report on dreams and past lives or something like that. And I thought everybody just dreamed in color like it was real life. I didn't know I was really any different. I thought that's just what happened to everybody. And found out that wasn't the case. and it just always kind of gave me this yearning that I figured, wow, I really want to understand why this is happening in my life. Why do I see these things before they happen? Or, what is going on here? And so I really actively started looking at things and studying things at a really, really young age. But I've also got a huge family history in this. So not only have I now been working with clients for a good 33 years, which is a little while, and but I've got 13 generations on both sides of the family that come down to me. One side is spiritual advisors and healers, and the other side of the family is Druidic. So they have, a strong connection with earth and nature and herbs and crystals and elements and seasons and all of those great things. So part of it was inherited, and part of it was just a need to understand what was happening in my life. And I figured early on, hey, I've got to figure out what to do with this and how to use it, because I could easily see this getting out of control if, you figure a young kid and you hit those teenage years and you want to control everything, right?
Right.
It's going to get out of control quick if you don't learn how to use it wisely.
Well, plus when you're a teenager, you know everything, right? I
mean, right, I know
I've gotten dumber since I was 18.
Wait a minute, everybody doesn't dream in color?
That was my thought. I thought they all did, and it seemed like everybody didn't. Now we have more and more people that do dream in color in real life. But
I
found out
did.
that
No, she's talking about lucid dreaming when you're awake.
Yeah.
Are your lucid dreams in color?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations! You're not one of the black and white crowd.
Well.
Oh man, you're a paranormal investigator. You're supposed to have on a black shirt.
Yeah, but not an auction shirt.
Well, it doesn't matter.
That's beside the point. Move on.
But you said you were a 13th generation?
Yes.
That's like back into the late 1700s, early 1800s. You can trace divination that far back?
Probably further back, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got relatives that just were involved in everything, going back into England and Europe, and relatives involved in translating the Bible. That was what I was able to trace. Now my sister's working on doing more, specific paperwork stuff on the genealogy, but she likes to go through and verify and validate all these different things. But I was definitely able to trace it back, and then so it's been an ongoing family thing. Once you get back into some of the England and the Europe aspects, it's a little harder to trace.
Yeah.
It's harder to track once you start getting back a couple hundred years.
So you had, but you had like an untold amount of family support growing up. I mean, when you said you saw something, people didn't just dismiss it and say that's your imagination, go back to bed, blah blah blah. They might actually ask you a question about what you saw.
It is interesting in that sense, because I was raised in a Presbyterian family, and I think in our family history we have people in just about every single religion there is. But I was raised in a Presbyterian church, but my family was very open. You know, they all have their own sense of insights in different ways, and instead of just dismissing it and saying, "Hey, you're kind of crazy and you're nuts and don't talk about those things," my family was open to talking about it. They encouraged, you know, me having leprechaun friends and imaginary buddies, as they would call them back then. They, I think, a little bit dismissed it as that, but they encouraged it and allowed me to play with it, and I think that was maybe a little different than what some other kids would have gotten in their history of growing up.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked to several psychics, mediums, channelers. I mean, I guess we've talked to just about everybody that's done divination.
I think we've covered it.
We're pretty close, and it's really strange. We've met so many people that have had a good support group, and it seems like there's almost fewer that have had a bad.
Actually, I think it's about 50-50.
Yeah, but you would think it would be 80-20. You know, you think people would have been, I don't want to say beat down, but beat down. But I mean, it's glad to hear. I'm glad. I never knew that there were this many open-minded people being raised in America.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it is definitely split out there, and it probably depends on what region or things like that you're brought up into. But I was very fortunate that way to have it, and you know, I had relatives that just did different work and prayer work things in part of their spiritual advising or healing work, and did remote healings and things like that. And I don't think they really always referred to it as then. Obviously, in older days, you had to be a little more careful in what you were presenting or what you were saying, and I think that was part of the key. A lot of them weren't out there looking for the high, big end exposure, like, "Hey, look at me, I'm a psychic," or
right.
You know, something like that. It was very, very low key in the family, but it was all very accepted at the same time. But it's interesting when you say that, because I've noticed the same thing, that there are some people that really have this a lot of support, and I've noticed people that were, you know, brought up under ritual systems and everything else, and then I've noticed other people in this industry that had no support, and they had to really branch out on their own. They really had to take what I would consider some big risk to follow their path. And I think even coming in up from a supportive home, there's a certain aspect of it that you're supported to a certain point, and then you still have to take hold on your own, and there's still sometimes those concepts that come through once in a while that are, well, that's a really nice concept, you know, but we don't seriously do something with that for work or things like that. So I think I am kind of branching out a little bit in that sense, that it's now become my life and my work fully. It's not just like, okay, Jesse does this on the side or Jesse does this part-time. It's now a full-time gig for me.
This is a question we've asked several people, and I'm very curious on your opinion on this. How or what is the difference between mediumship and channeling?
Interesting. You know, for me, part of how I differentiate them is mediumship is more of oftentimes connecting with spirits or energy that have perhaps passed on or they're on the other side. It's actually connecting a specific, I would say, soul energy. When we get into channeling, we're actually not just communicating, but we're actually making a full connection. We're actually letting that energy either speak through us. I find a lot of times with channeling, we're dealing with something that's more evolved, perhaps a soul that's evolved beyond human incarnations, maybe more of an angel force that's coming through, or divine spirit itself. It's a little more, in my thoughts, a little more interplanetary, if you want to say that, versus just the human incarnations, whereas mediumship tends to be more of a communication factor. So one is, it would be the difference like somebody speaking, for example, about a character in a play. And they say, here, let me tell you about this character in the play. Or I'm going to talk to this person on the phone. Whereas when you're channeling, it's more of an aspect of, I'm playing that character, or I am playing and being this person, this other person.
Okay.
Well, just to add something, in my personal experience, you don't necessarily have to let them use you. If they want to bad enough, they just do.
Yeah.
There are definitely, I agree with that, Kim. There's definitely those energies that have acquired enough concentration or force or whatever that will simply come through. And there is that aspect that they'll say, okay, this is time. You're going to be my vehicle. You're going to be my vessel to speak.
Well, we were at a
Shanley Hotel.
We were at the Shanley Hotel. I was trying to think of the word event there. We were up on the 3rd floor, and apparently something took over my right arm, and it started contorting and shaking horribly for like 30 minutes, and I couldn't stop it. I didn't invite anything in, but I couldn't stop it, and nobody else could either. It took about, once I went downstairs, it was still another 15 minutes, but it wasn't something I invited.
It's almost...
And for me, I would say that almost starts to cross over into a possession as opposed to a channeling.
Well, it was just the arm, and when I had spoke with another medium, she told me that basically he just wanted to show what had happened to him. And I just happened to be the one closest to where he was at the moment.
There's no history in her family of neurological disorders. There was no physical or neurological reason why she would have gotten the palsy that she had in that arm, and
or
the way
contorting
and
of
the way it
hand.
contorting, because it wasn't contorting like it was a cramp. It was going in a specific pattern. I looked her dead in the eye, and I understand what you're saying about the possession. And I looked her dead in the eye, and she was still there.
He said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine. It's just my stupid arm. It won't stop." And off he went.
And she went downstairs, and it went away. It's just one of those things. We've run across, not similar things, but we've run across some stuff doing paranormal investigations that'll, that's why I asked the question about the difference between mediumship and channeling, because a lot of people have that kind of backwards. And I think they claim to be one, and they're actually the other. It just gets so flip flop, people get confused. So that's why I wanted to know.
I think they do, and I think there's, I see a lot of people that say that they're channeling almost because it's become a popular thing to say.
Yeah.
And there's spirits that are moving, that can move through you, like in your experience, and definitely in the nature of your work, you're experiencing that, and anybody who's empathic is going to be more susceptible to that than somebody who's not, for example.
I am.
Because they're going to tune into that feeling, that energy, that vibration. They're a much more open channel that's easier to enter through. But I notice a lot of people are using that term channeling very, very loosely these days. And I think part of it is because there's so many people that want to believe, hey, look, I'm connected to this star family or this star family and that grouping over there. And it's almost become like the popular thing.
It's almost as bad as demonic. The word demonic. Everything's demonic.
Don't even get me started.
But no, it's not. But yeah,
it's like a lot of phases, right? It's we had the different things, like when Charmed and Harry Potter came out, and all of a sudden everybody was a witch, and Secret Circle came out, and all of a sudden everybody was practicing that way. And these different little pieces that come out now. The whole starseed things are coming out, and a lot of it just comes down to people wanting to be a part of something, and they'll say, no, this is genuine. But a lot of times they haven't necessarily actually channeled, I would say, as much as they have. And I guess it depends on where you draw that line on channeling, because that could be a very broad term. They may have just simply tapped into their own God self or their own divine self and gotten an understanding, and now they're able to communicate that message, which for me is a little bit different than straight out channeling. But that's kind of splitting hairs on terms.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought my arm had gone crazy. I was told by someone else it was considered channeling, but I am empathic. I'm a physical empath, not a mental empath.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to pick up on people's aches and pains, and as opposed to just their mental state.
She gets the emotional and the physical at the same time.
And I don't like it.
Yeah, well.
Not on the holidays. I hate it.
Yeah, well. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Hold on, folks. Looks like Skype is going to try to call her back. While we wait for that. How have things been going in the world of Metaluna?
Slow since Christmas. Although, I did have the crazy lady come in today, all upset that I
Didn't have baby bottles?
wasn't selling baby bottles. I'm not quite sure how that works.
Yeah, Tim, we'll channel her through the Skype. That'll be good. And let me do this real quick, folks. See if I can get a hold of her. You gotta love technology. Wow, isn't that different?
Apparently it's not wanting to play too well.
Yeah, well, there's also some major storms going on, but not back there that way, I don't think. Utah. I know they're on the East Coast, but
Well, they're near Colorado. I mean,
I don't know. I'll try to get her back here in just a second. Like we mentioned earlier, you guys be sure we picked up 18 new shows this week. We do have Pin 2, if you look up above, on the little buttons above the player. There will be a Pin 2 button. And don't forget to check out our radio button. Also excited to announce that our good friend Mr. Tim Yancey and his wife and Matt, and I cannot remember the other lady's name. Tina. I couldn't remember her name.
how could you not remember her name?
I'm just that way.
I'm kidding. I used to play with her in the chat room.
They are coming back on air, and I'm glad to see them coming back. I knew he couldn't stay away.
He wants to hang out with us and be one of our friends.
So, we'll see. Wow, we're still showing to have a problem. Well, folks, looks like we're having some difficulties. We'll sit here and blabber on for a little bit, and I'm trying to get her back on. We'll see what we can make happen. That was a really good interview. I was having fun with that.
Yeah. And Robin, by the way, that red shirt is available in your size. And it's really cute.
Just so everybody knows, you can catch...
The person whom you're trying to reach.
Yeah, I'm guessing that. Thank you, Mrs. Skype. Remember, you can catch Ann Nichols George and her show, Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. You can catch that Friday nights at midnight. That's midnight Mountain Time. It's 2 a.m. on the East Coast and 1 a.m. in Central.
It says midnight to 2 a.m. Eastern.
Okay, well then that's incorrect, because that's what not what her website said.
I'm just saying what I'm reading there.
But be sure you check out all the other great radio shows. We have Dead Air Paranormal is on there with George Lopez and those guys.
We like George. He's fun.
We have a Tune Radio magazine with Renee Cummins, and there's 3 or 4 shows on from them.
Yep, she's typing.
Bishop James Long. Bishop James Long and his Inspire Radio Network is also.
There we go.
Hi.
Howdy.
Hi. I was going along and then I was gone.
Yeah, there's something blipped on the internet between us. It wasn't our internet here because we never stopped broadcasting. So,
could have been here. Ours is I don't know. It's been a little sporadic lately. So
yeah. What were we talking about? Oh, here we go. Here's a good question for you. Of all the things that you do in the world of divination, what feels the strongest to you or resonates the most with you now?
oh wow, that's really interesting question. out of everything in divination, I still get a lot through dreams. Dreams are still very powerful for me. Scrying is still very powerful for me. But I do a lot of active work with numerology and astrology. And I find, I actually used to, at one point, I wrote my own forecast for about 13 years and had my own segment on a radio show every week with that for a long time. And I find that just is such an insightful tool along the way. There's so many answers and insights, and it's something to pay huge attention to. I always like to look at that along with, for example, numerology factors, especially if I'm going to make a move or a shift, or if I'm setting up appointments with people. I find that it really makes a difference in how smoothly things are going. And so, yeah, I would say numerology and astrology have been 2 of the biggest keys for me most recently.
Well, and numerology is so I don't want to say ancient history, but it is one of the oldest forms that's out there of divination.
It really is, and when we look at both numerology and astrology, I mean, they're both very scientifically based, and I think that's where some people have placed them in the woo-woo category. But their numerology, for example, is in everything. The numbers carry a vibrational energy, and so we see these in music patterns, and of course music patterns can raise cultures. They can align us with different stone and flower essences, and align us with angelic influences or energetic influences. And it really is all about a flow and creating. It's kind of like a recipe. If you want to, you could use some of the same ingredients, flour and milk and egg and butter and sugar, and you put them together in one way, then you're going to get bread. You put them together in another way, you're going to get cake. You put them together in another way, you're going to get something else. And numerology is kind of like that. Mm-hmm. You put the numbers together in different ways. You take 2 people and you put them together, and they're going to have a certain influence. You change those influences, or you go to a different person, you're going to bring out a different side of that person.
I don't even know where you're at.
Have you had any really totally, you've sat down to do a reading with a client and it just ended up being the most spiritual experience you've ever had? Have you ever had something that you didn't think was going to be earth-shattering or earth-changing for you happen at a very simple time like that? Have you ever had that kind of reaction? Or
it's funny, when I had my shop for a while in California, and I would do readings out of there, and it seemed like every time I would read for people, I would stir such a deep emotional pattern in them that they would just break down and start crying. And I would just literally, before I even started the readings, I would just put a Kleenex box in a trash can right next to the client because they would just break down in tears, because inevitably something would come up in the reading that would just, they were so ready to release and they were so ready to transform, and they just needed to have it verbalized to them. I think one of my most powerful experiences was actually more through healing work than it was an actual reading, and that's where I used to do some chakra alignments. And I would balance out the chakra systems, and I could look into each of the chakras, and they would communicate with me. They would tell me what was going on. And this one client that I had, I was working on her, and all of a sudden this little child shows up and starts talking with me. And this child is like 4 or 5 years old, and it's in this dress, and it starts talking about all these things. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And so I went through and I kept working on this person. I kept clearing on them and getting everything balanced out and cleaned up. And after the session, I always would do this kind of debriefing to let my clients know this is what I learned. And so I started sharing this. I said, you're probably going to think I'm crazy by telling you this, but this is what I saw. And she's like, oh my God, I had a dress exactly like that. That's exactly how I looked at the age of 4 or 5 years old. And that's exactly when this trauma started. And I thought, wow, well, that's really interesting. And she goes, that's at the core of my issues. And I said, well, I've cleared all these things, so these should move forward. And she was having trouble in her romance area of life and her intimate area of life. And then we worked with this and we cleared it. And I did, I think, a total of 2 sessions, maybe 3 sessions on her. And by the 3rd session, she came back. And I didn't see her for a while. I was kind of like, gosh, I hope everything's okay. You know, like I hope I didn't scare her off or something like that. And I hope everything's working out for her. And she came back about a month later and she goes, I just want you to know I have the most amazing relationship going on. I haven't been able to have a relationship in years. And it was so, melting my heart. And she goes, I really want to see where this goes. She walked away. I didn't see her for like 2 months or 3 months. And then all of a sudden she shows up again. And she goes, I just want you to know I'm having the most rewarding, intimate life. And I never, ever thought I would ever be in this place in my life because of the trauma I've been through. And she says, I have this person, they're loving, I have every piece of a dream relationship, and he's already talking about marriage. And I was so blown away. I was like, whoa. So like in 4 months, we went from, this person that was totally shut down, traumatized, to this person who's now like looking at getting married. and it was really powerful. And she had this signed book in gemstones. It was interesting. She didn't have a lot of money at the time. And she says, this is very, very treasured to me, and I want you to have it. And it was a very old book that went out of print, actually, so it became very, valued and everything, too, in time. But it was so moving to see the shift and the changes. And, she was one of them, and then there was another person that I used to do readings for that was in the entertainment industry. And they used to come up, get out of the LA area for, the weekend and come and see me. And there was various situations there. And I had discussed some things with her in a previous reading. I said, you need to watch this and that. And she says, I didn't totally pay attention to you. And now I'm in this really awkward situation. And so the breakthroughs that just would come in those sessions. I mean, it was so transformative. I think most of my clients found that kind of an energy, and still do today. I still get it a lot where people struggle with the trust or the belief that they can move into something better, and they do. So it's very exciting to see it happen. I think that's part of the biggest rewards of doing this type of work, is seeing the transformation.
How do you know which style of divination to use on which client?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I have probably, as you know from looking at my bio, about 50 different fields, practices, belief systems,
Right.
and tools and things that I draw on. And a lot of times what I do is I just kind of have different things at hand ready to go. And I listen to the person talk, and I'm just kind of guided as to where to go with that. It just kind of comes to me like a voice shows up in my head, or a picture shows up, and it tells me exactly where to go. But in listening to them, one of my skills is that I can pick up on patterns and see patterns in people and things and situations. So I really focus on having them share what's happening in the situation a lot of times. And in that, I can hone right in on what is happening for them, on what patterns are being repeated, what steps need to be taken to either move in the direction they want to, or to break the pattern, different things like that. And matter of fact, I was working with somebody who is CEO of a rather large company, and had been working with him on different things, both related to his work and his personal life. And he hit points with me. He says, I've spent a 1-hour session with you, and you just figured out what I've been struggling with for the last 15 years of my marriage. How do you do that? And it really comes down to just listening, and everything integrates, because it's like everything just kind of starts popping into my head, and it's like, okay, now remember this, we have Venus retrograde, and we have Jupiter retrograde, and there's this piece going on, and the sun's in Capricorn, and we're on this kind of numerology pattern, and the moon is waxing or waning, and all these pieces just kind of accumulate together, and it's like, makes perfect sense. To me, it makes perfect sense. So I'm kind of like a liaison maybe for, this big, huge cumulative information out there, and it comes in and it filters in, and then it falls together like a bunch of puzzle pieces coming together, and then I can translate it over to that person.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I don't think I read far enough in your bio, like I said, I'd just now be getting done if I'd have started. You're also walking a Wiccan path, is that fair to say?
That's fair to say, yeah. And, I would, yeah, it's definitely fair to say. I studied Wicca. I've run my own groups in the past. I don't have my own group running right now. I'm more of a solo practitioner right now. And that comes back, I would say, some of the family history, just having that natural alignment with the environment. And it really is in my nature. I think a lot of people, boy, you could open a whole can of things there, because you've got people that are practicing Wicca that have a whole bunch of different views, and they're very split about everything there. You have people that don't practice it. You have the people that are afraid of it. For me, it's a very peaceful way of life. It's a way of aligning with nature. It's a way of honoring the elements and the forces of the universe. For me, it's really about harmony. And not everybody looks about that, but it is a very ancient practice. In some ways more ancient than a lot of the traditional religions out there. And a lot of our traditional religions have come through some of the roots of Wicca. So, yes, I would say it's very fair to say I practice that. I still honor seasons and turnings of the year and solstices and equinoxes. And all different times of the year. And I actually do online courses that are related to all of that. So every month I'm doing new moon and full moon honorings, end of the moon cycle reveries. I just finished doing something for the winter solstice. I'll be doing something for Candlemas coming up in early February. So yeah, I like to still honor those traditions, definitely.
What is your biggest misconception? What do you think the general public's biggest misconception is about pagans, druids, Wiccans? What in your opinion, what is the biggest misconception?
It's funny you should bring that up, because I ended up doing an interview many years ago when I had my store in California for a primetime news station. It was on the 5 o'clock news, and they came into my shop, and they really were, wanting to do this whole thing, like show us an altar and show us this and show us that. Well, to me, an altar is very sacred. It's not that it's supposed to be hidden from the public so much as it's just sacred space. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to dress up in a robe for you and do a whole altar thing for you just because it's Halloween. And I said, I think what I want to do is I want to do a segment that is all about dispelling the myths of witchcraft. And people need to realize that if you were walking down the street, you would not necessarily know that somebody was a witch. And I think some of the biggest misconceptions is that there's been a lot of misconceptions that if you're a witch, you worship the devil or Satan, or you're doing, all kinds of animal and people sacrifices and things like that. And it's not the case. I mean, part of their biggest philosophy is you don't harm anybody in any way, shape, or form. So it was really interesting, and it actually got a huge amount of support when I did that interview. It was really funny because I had people in like their 60s and their 70s coming out, and this was an area, and keep in mind, when I had my shop, the town I was in at the time had 4,000 people to it. There were 26 churches. I did have Christian counselors and priests as clients, by the way, because of carrying all the different herbs that I carried in the shop. They would come in and purchase things. And so it was very, very interesting. And I would have these people coming in my shop going, my daughter's a witch. I have to get this book for her. And I was home passing out candy on Halloween night when the night that it aired. And this little boy comes up to the door, and he must have been like around 7 or 8 years old. And he looks at me, and he looks at me, and he keeps looking at me, and he goes, you're that lady that was on the TV. And I'm going, and my boyfriend's like, at the time was totally panicked. He's like, oh my God, here we go. The shop's going to be burned down, because they burned down 2 other shops in the town before it that were metaphysical shops. And I said, yeah. I said, you're right. I am that woman. And he goes, well, they said you were a witch. And I said, that's right. I am. I said, does that scare you? And he pauses for a minute, and he goes, no, I think that's way cool. And so it was very interesting. It was just really exciting to see that so many people were waiting for somebody to bring some positive light into the area on that, and to dispel those myths. I got just a ton of positive reinforcement from that. But I think that's one of the biggest concepts, is people think like, they still have this antiquated idea that a witch is sitting around in this robe all of the time with warts on her nose and old and ugly, and you could spot them a mile away and doing all these crazy things. And it's just not really the case. It's actually just very much in harmony with the universe.
One of the things that you also had on your bio, and this kind of ties into this, is that you are creating spiritual tools and practices. And I was wondering if I could get you to talk about exactly what do you mean by that?
Well, and I'm always developing things for people. one of the things that I have, which is actually a free gift whenever somebody signs up on my email list, which they can do on my website, Ann Nichols George, #1.com. And right there on the homepage, there's a little video about it, and it's called the Genesis Clearing Statement, which is a tool that I created, and it simultaneously clears, removes like blocks and obstacles, and can help us also manifest things. But when I designed this tool, I designed it to clear no matter where it came from, because sometimes it's very hard to pinpoint the root of something, where something came from. It's hard to tell, well, did it happen when I was this age or that age, or is there something that I'm not getting, or things like that. So simply with that intent to clear the obstacle or the challenge, we can make it happen with this tool. And it'll clear whether it happened in this life, a past life, a parallel life, whether it comes down through the family DNA, any of those types of things, because there's a lot of that too, where people go, I just don't get this. I've cleared and cleared and cleared. And of course, there's so many different influences that can create our obstacles and challenges in our life. So I cleared this tool, and it's called the Genesis Clearing Statement. And what it does is it actually raises our vibration up. When people say it, they say, I actually feel like I'm getting lighter. I actually feel like I can feel this transformation. The weight of the world is feeling like it's lifted from me when I do this. I feel so much at peace. And, like any tool, you have to use it to work. There's some people that think, oh my gosh, I can just, think it and print it out, but then if you don't use it, it doesn't work. When people sign up for the mailing list, they actually get a printed version with the explanation behind it, and they also get 3 audios. So they'll get an audio, for example, that is an I am statement, which is for work with themselves. They'll get one that is for working with other people. Say somebody who is really sick or struggling in a situation. Some people worry about that. They think, well, am I crossing lines? Am I interfering with something? The reality of it is people still have to take their physical steps in handling situations, but you can certainly set the energy up around them to help give them the strength to start to clear it. And then there is the one for working with groups or relationships. So when it's yourself and somebody else that it works for. And actually, I can give you a little sampling of this here that we can go through. And what it is with the Genesis Clearing Statement, we start at Genesis because that's the beginning point. Wherever that is, that's the beginning point of things. And that's where the trigger occurs. And we want to carry it through forevermore because we don't want this to keep coming back on us, right? We want to have it cleared, and we want to let it go. Now, sometimes we're going to have some layers. It's kind of like anything. We start to, we look at one outside portion of it, and then there may be another piece that comes up along the way, and we can clear that as well. And it comes to our attention. But after we look at that starting point or that trigger, what we're doing is we're originating the statement from a space of safety, because safety is the base state where everything starts from. And if we don't have a sense of safety, we can't progress and we can't open up, which means we can't release or let go of things that are interfering in our processes. And so that space of safety allows our essence to fully open up. And then we move to a space of being supported. And the support is to bring in the energy of union. And this is a point of knowing that we're supported, for example, by the universe and others around us. And when you think about it, what greater support could you have, right, than the universe that's out there? And because we are supported, it allows us to know that we're going to succeed and that we'll be able to overcome anything and move forward from our situation or our space that we're in. And then we move up to the vibration of love. And love is the energy where we truly connect with spirit. And at that stage, that's where we become magnetic. And we're able to draw in everything that we need. We find alignment with spirit and thus open to endless possibilities. And when we're loved by others, we are given, loving energy so that we can be connected with spirit. So that love vibration, that's where we open again to basically all possibilities at that point. That's where we're really getting that assistance part. And then we move into joy, and joy raises our vibration even further, and that connects us even stronger with spirit. And there, things are flowing into our life easier. They're more complete as they're flowing in. It's a state of finding pleasure in pretty much everything that we're working with. And then we raise it on up to peace, and peace raises our vibration and brings us right up to the point of merging with spirit. And we're free of worries and challenges, and we're creating and providing our gifts to the world at this point that others can benefit from what we have to offer. And then we move into a space of divine will with this. And it's important to bring this in, divine will at Genesis and beyond, because this is where our will is integrated with divine will. And it helps us to operate at our highest self. And some people get a little scared by that maybe because they think, oh my God, do I really want to be that vulnerable? Do I really want to turn everything over? And, with divine will, we know that we're on our path. We know that spirit wants us to be happy and fulfilled and to live that life that's everything that we can imagine and even better. And at that point, our will is spirit's will. So it's a really powerful space. It raises up that vibration, it brings it forward, and then we can just really make that release. And once we're in that space, everything just flows so easily, so completely. And we can even go through that if you want.
Actually, believe it or not, we're running out of time.
Okay.
And I did want you to be able to talk about your radio show. And I know we had mentioned that you could be found on Blog Talk and on Penn Radio. But talk about Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour.
Yeah, Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour is the name of the show. And like you said, they can pick it up right here on Penn. It will start at midnight Eastern Time. So about, just a couple hours away here, really. And a lot of times I've got guests on the shows, so I have some really amazing guests coming on, sharing their work, giving us different techniques and tools and understandings about things. Sometimes I've got musical guests on. I've had, for example, last year I had Stephen Halpern on, Peter Cater on. Those are both Grammy nominees. Just an amazing lineup of people. And every now and then, like last week, I kind of did my own show. I did a meditation for the new year. Tonight, I've got Sarita Starr on. Really, really amazing, fascinating person. So I hope people will stay up and tune in, or they catch the archives on that. Either way, Sarita does what's called lexicograms, which is a really fascinating topic. And that's where you take words or phrases and you mix the letters up and you come up with other things. And it helps us understand more of the energy vibration within what we're saying and doing and working with. And she's also going to give us some insights for 2014. So what we can expect. She does astrology and numerology as well. So it's going to be really exciting. And the guests vary from everything. I mean, I've had, like I said, musical guests, astrology, past life people on, but then also people that help to heal trauma on the show, people that have dealt in undevelopment, preservation of spaces. I've had Paul Tukey on the show in the past. He's from HGTV, doing organic gardening things. So it's very, very diverse what we get into there.
Yeah, that's awesome. To kind of leave our viewers with a final thought from you, if you had one best message to send out to the world, what would it be? Not putting you on the spot or nothing.
But go. No.
The heart of all of my work, I would say, is my message, and that is compassion. be compassionate with yourself, with others, with everything around you. And, you open the world to yourself in doing that.
It's a great message. Well, Jesse, I am so glad that you came on. I'm so glad you're part of the Penn family now. Let me put up this graphic that's got everybody. They can find you at for email. It's lifeofbliss@q.com.
Actually, Jesse at Ann Nichols George, the number 1.com is the best place to email.
Oh, okay.
The other one works, but the Jesse at Ann Nichols George, the number 1.com is probably a little more reliable.
Oh, okay. And they can also find you every midnight on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour.
Right. Every Friday night at midnight. Mm-hmm.
And with that, folks, we're going to skedaddle and get out of here. You got anything to say to the nice people?
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Blessed be, y'all. Good night, everybody.
Night.
shadow on the wall that looks like a man. Lord, that. Hey, round up the team. Let's get started. Hey, this is Brother Mike. Well, there's a party and you're invited. We got the camera set. Let's turn off these lights. 'Cause all my rowdy friends are ghost hunting tonight. Hey, round up the team. Let's get started. Hey, this is your big brother Mike calling. There's a party and you're invited. We got the camera set. Let's turn off these lights. 'Cause all my rowdy friends are ghost hunting tonight. That's right. Go get 'em, boys.
And welcome everybody to PEMA TV.
Welcome everybody to January 3rd, 2014 and Friday.
Made it to 2014. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking of making it to 2014, even though you're not going to need for your holiday shopping needs anymore.
Hey, there are birthdays coming up.
That's
and
right.
Valentine's Day is in 6 weeks, 5 weeks.
So be sure and go to Metaluna.
BoutiqueandStones.com. Ha! I got the
And
.com
we're actually
in
showing a
there.
picture from, I believe that's a red shirt that you're selling?
Yeah, it's a red 3/4 length type T-shirt, but it's not quite cotton material.
Mm.
It says "Love Connected Haters"
There you go. And
with the IRA on it.
mm-hmm. And here at PEN, we have recently expanded, so be sure and check out Pen 2 and our radio page. Because that's a great segue, because our guest tonight is just joined our radio family.
Yes, she has.
And we are proud to bring on Jessie Ann Nichols George.
.com.
Well, actually is .com. But she does a show called Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. Jesse, how are you?
You know, I'm doing wonderful, Eric. This is just absolutely perfect to be on here, and I'm so happy to be a part of PEN Network here and to have the show running through your area as well.
And lamb just moved on that stand. I got movement in the cellars, I got footsteps in the hall. There's no time to waste, I better make some calls. I gotta get ready, make everything right, 'cause all my rowdy friends are goes hunting tonight. Hey, round up the team, let's get started. Hey, this is Brother Mine. There's a party and you're invited. We got the camera set, let's turn off these lights, 'cause all my rowdy friends are goes hunting tonight. This old house has a long history. It should be real good for activity. And we got the house wired for sound and got motion alarms setting all around. Got a box full of batteries ready to go, and everyone's itching to start this show. Got our logo tees, driving black SUVs, and that one bald guy with a slick goatee.
You know, I know that I was blessed to work with you a little while back. I was on with Christiana's Cafe, and had a blast doing that show with her, and here I am coming on live with you. So
well, I guess
it's wonderful.
I guess it's our pleasure to have you. But when did all this start for you? Because I would read your bio, but then we'd only have about 20 minutes left for the show. Because there's not a whole lot that you haven't covered or been part of. I mean, everything from Reiki to crystals to astrology, numerology, feng shui, signs and symbols, dreams, DreamWorks, meditation, and visualization. I don't want to say you've done it all, but you've done a bunch.
I've done an awful lot, that's for certain.
But how did it start for you? That's my big question, is how does it start for you, and you know, how did you figure out your connection
She
to
was
spirit?
collecting rocks.
Actually, Kim, I think you're pretty close to that. Yeah, Eric, it started for me, I consciously have memories of around 3, ironically, the age of 3, where I was having dreams.